Today we are going to be talking about something that is kind of a big deal to large family moms a lot of times, and that is losing the baby weight. And I'm going to share my journey with it. This is something that was requested by a listener, and so we're just going to kind of walk through my journey and also some tips and encouragement for you as you deal with the excess baby weight as a large family mom. Hello friends, welcome to the Raising Arrows podcast. I'm Amy Roberts from raisingarrows.net, and this is episode number 155, Losing the Baby Weight. Now I need to add a little bit of a disclaimer here and a caveat to this. Several years ago, I lost a bunch of weight and I kept it off for the most part. I am about 5 pounds over what I lost initially. And then a lot of you know that I also had diastasis recti surgery where they sewed my stomach muscles back together and then they took the excess skin that was there from that surgery. You can see that whole journey on YouTube. I have a series of videos that I did about the topic. But at the time of the surgery, I had lost about 30 pounds. I was feeling really great. I am now about 5 pounds over that, would love to get that weight off, and then another 10 as well, if possible. I do think that I'm at a pretty decent weight, but I know that I would be a lot healthier if I would get another 10 off. The funny thing is when you tell people, yeah, I'd like to lose about 10 more pounds, they're like, yeah, you and everybody else. So it's probably a pretty common thing to be like, yeah, I still have about 10 pounds I want to lose. But that's where I'm at, 10 to 15 pounds that I would like to get off. I am a little bit heavier than I was when I had the diastasis recti surgery. And I am at the point where every little bit counts. I feel every little bit of weight on me. And so I do feel like it's very important that I go ahead and get that weight off. So we're gonna back it up a little bit and we're gonna start at the beginning of this journey for me. And I'm just gonna kind of share how things unfolded for me over the years, and then also some encouragement and tips for you as you deal with the baby weight. And this is something that large family moms, we go through this over and over again. Unless you are naturally thin and your metabolism is naturally in sync, then you tend to need to deal with this at some point or another. And so for me, I was pretty much dealing with it from the beginning. So back in 1998, I had our oldest son, but prior to getting pregnant with him, I spent about a year wanting to be pregnant. And in that year, I went from a very healthy, normal weight range up 30 pounds. I gained 30 pounds wishing I was pregnant. I think I was overeating, feeling like, well, maybe this is the month, and I was overeating continuously. And then I finally did get pregnant, and I ended up gaining from there. Right after I had him, I dropped all the weight very quickly. I was 21 years old. All of the weight that I had gained came off very quickly, plus some. However, the almost 30 pounds that I had gained wanting to be pregnant did not come off as easily. And so I went to Weight Watchers with my mother-in-law, and I very quickly dropped the rest of that weight and was at a very normal, healthy weight range until, you guessed it, I wanted to be pregnant again. And during that time, I had a miscarriage and I gained some more weight, not quite as much that time, but sure enough, I gained weight wanting to be pregnant, did get pregnant. Then I had hyperemesis and I ended up very, very sick. I dropped, 15, 20 pounds at the beginning of that pregnancy. And then I went on to gain a pretty normal amount of weight with her as well. After I had her, again, that upper amount of weight came down and dropped me right at pretty much the same place it had dropped me with my son. So there I was, same place, still needing to get a little bit of weight off, but realizing that I had kind of come to this set point, if you will. And in fact, that set point would change throughout the years, but sometimes that would be my set point again. And we'll talk a little bit about those set points when it comes to weight, because I honestly feel like that is one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to losing weight as a large family mom. Your body sets and you go back to that weight, and it's almost like you could almost eat anything you wanted to and end up at that weight again, or drop down to that weight and you just can't ever seem to go below it no matter how hard you try. And your body is really fighting to stay at that set point. And so we'll kind of talk about that as you see throughout the years, that that set point for me actually went up and held at different places, and that actually now I'm back to another set point that I need to work through. So my weight fluctuated after our second child was born, and it was quite a while before I had our third child. And during that time, my weight went up and down, and the longing for another child was still there. And finally, I did get pregnant with our third. However, by that point, I had gone up another 10 pounds. And yes, that became the next set point for me. And so during that pregnancy, I gained, a little bit more. Now it was not just, the normal amount of weight that I was gaining in pregnancy. Now we were going like above that. And my babies were already big babies, but this caused them to be even larger. And so I had a lot of big babies, which is something that is part of my family genetic makeup anyway. The women in my family, no matter how small they are, tend to have very large babies. And so my babies were in the 9-10 pound range quite frequently. And my body would fairly easily go back down to that set point. However, that set point was actually probably 20 pounds heavier than I should have been. And so I was going up, and then I was coming back down very easily, very quickly. Within about 6 weeks, I was usually right back down where I had started. So it sounds like, oh yeah, I lost all the baby weight. I was able to say I lost all the baby weight. However, I still had excess weight that needed to come off of me. And I just did not seem to be able to do it. After my fourth child, I did lose that 20 pounds. But then our fifth child was our daughter, Emily. And those of you who know her story know that she passed away when she was 7.5 months old from complications from malrotation of the intestines. And from there on out, I pretty much cratered. I pretty much didn't care. And one of the things that kept playing over in my head, and I still struggle with this to this day, is that I never wanted to do without. I never wanted to be without. And I felt like I deserved the food. I deserved the treat that the food gave me. And I still struggle with that. I still struggle with this feeling that I deserve that treat. And so after Emily passed away, I just kept eating. If we wanted dessert when we went out, we got dessert. I got whatever I wanted at the grocery store. I, drank the gallon of soda or whatever it was. I just was constantly eating my way through the grief process. And I did not want to do without. And that followed me for years to come. So then my set point ended up 10 pounds higher than that. So now we're talking that I am some 30, 40 pounds overweight, and I'm getting pregnant at that weight, and I'm going way up over that. I'm having these big babies. Now, yep, losing the baby weight, coming right back down to that overweight place, but I'm losing the baby weight. And when I say I'm losing the baby weight, yes, I'm coming right back down to the place where I got pregnant. And when you are overweight, that is not as difficult. But when you are a normal weight, an average weight, a typical weight, a good weight for you, it's going to be harder to get back down to that weight. And so when I came to the place where I realized I wanted to drop the rest of it, that's when things got hard. Prior to that, it was not as difficult. Now, when I had our 10th child, it was a very traumatic birth. She was in NICU for 6 weeks, and I ate my way through that as well. Apparently, I am a stress eater. I don't know if any of the rest of you are. I sometimes envy the people who don't eat when they're stressed, because that is so not me. I just pack on the pounds when I'm stressed. And you will see that throughout my life. You will see where my stress levels go up, my weight goes up. And so it's just part of who I am. I also think that during that time, hormonally, my body is just trying to hang on to the weight. And so even when I do try to drop some weight, which I tried during 2020 to drop at that point, I think I'd gained 10 pounds. I tried to drop the 10 pounds that I had gained after the surgery that I had, and couldn't get it off. And I think that was because I was so stressed with all that was going on during 2020 that I just could not get the weight off. So that does factor in. You do need to bring your stress levels down as much as possible if you are going to drop this weight, if you are a stress eater. And so that's my number one tip to begin with, is just assess your stress and figure out if there is a way to back some of that off. And that may be that you need to take some things out of your schedule. You need to slow down. You need to have a conversation with your husband about the fact that some of this stuff is really stressing you out, and you need to drop some balls, and you need to just take a break here and there, a whole lot more than you have been doing. If you feel like you're kind of a bundle of nerves, it's going to be really hard for you to lose the weight. Okay, so I was saying that my 10th child, I ate my way through that stress. When I got back home from NICU, I was quite overweight at that point. But with just a little bit of work, I brought myself back down to that highest set point. But then I couldn't seem to get any more weight off. And I did not know what to do. Everything I tried was not working. I was really kind of leaning into the whole intuitive eating culture, and that wasn't working because apparently intuitively I want to eat a lot. So that didn't work very well at all. I tried some different systems, different programs, and it just seemed like I was either starving or so caught up in the rules that any chance I got to break the rules, I was back to eating just like I was eating through all of that stress again. So I knew I really needed to get some accountability. I needed somebody to pretty much be in my face telling me what to do, how to do it, and then to keep accountable. Somebody that I had to say, hey, this is where I'm at right now. And I knew that it wasn't really working, some of the stuff that I'd been trying and some of the accountability things that I'd been trying. Now, Weight Watchers throughout the years had helped me to get some of the weight off. And I'm in Weight Watchers right now as an accountability. I need to have the accountability. Otherwise, if stress happens, I start eating. So I am actually going to Weight Watchers meetings currently. I am not at a lifetime weight. Will I get there? Possibly. I also know that the weight that they recommend for my height is not necessarily the weight that I personally want to be at. I'd like to be about 10 pounds heavier than that. I know that you can get a doctor to change that, and that may be what I do when I'm ready for that. But right now it's an accountability for me. And I also want to, like I say, drop 5 to 10 pounds, maybe 15 at the most. However, that is not what I did in 2017. Yeah, 2017 is when I lost all of that excess weight. And what I did then was my husband was deployed. So that is one thing that not all of you are going to be able to accomplish. My husband was deployed. And part of the reason that that is important in my story is that I had less to focus on. Now that seems counterintuitive, but as military wives know, when your husband is gone, your focus gets really inward to the hub of your family. Now some women, and probably more extroverts than introverts, I'm more of an introvert, I kind of just closed in on everything. Extroverts tend to like overextend themselves as military wives, but I'm the opposite. So I kind of just gathered all my chickens and we hunkered down, and that was that. And so while he was gone, all I was concentrating on was staying home, doing school. We weren't traveling like we usually do. I wasn't going out to eat with my husband. I wasn't going places with him. I just had the kids and myself to focus on. And so that is one thing that allowed me the space the margin in my life to go ahead and lose some weight. However, that's not something that everybody's going to be like, oh, well, just send your husband, off for a year and you'll lose some weight. Not necessarily. Some women find that doesn't work at all, but it's also not a feasible option for most people. But for me, that was the catalyst. And I decided that I wanted to focus on getting healthy while he was gone. So then what I did was I was researching online. I really wanted to take a Christian approach. There are some intuitive eating sites out there that are not Christian at all. Not at all. And they're very much me focused and centered. And I wanted to make sure that I was doing something that was glorifying to the Lord. And I happened to find an online coach. The program was called Grace and Strength Lifestyle, I believe. I don't know that she is still doing like the focused weight loss. I feel like she's kind of gone more to the life coach side of things. But back then she was focused on the weight loss. There was a group of us who would meet via Zoom call once a week for a Bible study and kind of celebrating our wins and our losses and all of those types of things. We were kind of a community, and I got to know those women very well. And then my coach would check in with me every single week, sometimes several times a week. Anytime I was having any issues, she was there for me. That said, this program was expensive. It was very, very expensive, but my husband was deployed. We weren't spending as much money because there was just us and we weren't traveling and anything like that. So I went ahead and asked him and I said, can I join this program? He said, yes. I think I was with them, 6 months maybe. In that 6 months, I lost 30 pounds. I was down where I felt very comfortable, but I had somebody I was accountable to all the time. She was checking in. I was giving her my weight every single week. We were talking strategies. We were talking ideas when I hit a plateau, because sure enough, at that set point, that bottom one, I hit a plateau, and I hit that plateau every single time. In fact, that's where I have been recently, and I'm, knocking myself off the plateau, and we'll talk about that here shortly. But I hit that plateau and we had to kind of talk through, what do I do now? And so that worked. I had somebody constantly there cheering me on and giving me ideas. And that I have found for myself is incredibly important. I need to have that in my life in order to stay focused. Otherwise, I'm just like, well, I'm back to that I deserve. And that was something too that she forced me to explore, was why do I feel like I deserve? And initially it was an escape. We were talking about how I was constantly escaping and I was using food to escape. And it was like this thing that was just mine, and almost a little bit of a hoarder mentality, like this food is mine and I can eat it no matter what anybody says. I think some of that is because a lot of my life has been people pleasing, and I am just constantly trying to please everybody, and that is absolutely impossible. And really the only person I need to be focused on pleasing is the Lord. And I was not focused on that at all. I was all focused on me and making sure that my comfort level was good. And the only way that was going to happen was if I made everybody else happy, and then I could relax. And I was not keeping my focus on the Lord and realizing that He is the one I need to be pleasing. And I needed to be really leaning into, what does the Lord say? And so doing these Bible studies and talking through this and realizing that I have this problem with deserving and escaping and all of that really helped me to hone in on what it is that makes me want to overeat. Even today, I realize that there is a pattern. And when I get into a stress pattern, it becomes all about me and me making sure that I'm pleasing everybody else, and then me eating to please myself. And that is a really, really bad habit that I have. And so I'm working through that. I am trying, different tools and techniques. And like I said, I'm back at Weight Watchers, or WW. as they call it now. But I'm back at Weight Watchers for the accountability. I have a friend there. I have made friends there. There are people there that I absolutely enjoy being around. And so there is that accountability. And I told myself, I'm going to go every single week, whether it's good or bad. I'm going to go every single week. Right now during the holidays, I am not actively trying to lose a bunch of weight, but I am trying to stay steady and stay focused and realize that you just can't eat endlessly and stay healthy. Okay, so let's talk some strategies and encouragement and expectations as a mom of many. First of all, we all know we ought to be exercising, right? But when you have a lot of kids, exercise is typically in the way of, picking up toys, running after kids, changing diapers, and you tend to feel like, I do that all day long. Why isn't the weight just falling off of me? I have 2 toddlers and a newborn. Surely I should be skinny. But again, there's the level of stress, and then it's not a concentrated amount of exercise. It's not a focused amount of exercise. So what I have done in the past is I have actually put the baby down for a nap. I've put the toddler in a stroller and I have gone for a walk, and I have actually walked around my house over and over and over. In fact, one of the houses we lived in where I lost quite a bit of weight at, I wore a path around our house. And then at the house that we were living in, when I dropped the 30 pounds, there was actually a loop right in the neighborhood. And I did have older kids by that point. And what I would say is, I'm going out for my walk. I would walk 2 loops for that and then come back. And I did that every single morning. We were living in a more temperate climate at that time. And so even in the winter, I was able to walk those 2 loops. Sometimes it was pretty cold, but most of the time it was pretty decent. And so every single day I walked. And I wasn't overly exerting myself because I have found that something about my body does not like that. I really have to just walk. Any exercise that takes me to a place of intense cardio, intense weightlifting, intense anything, I do not lose. My body freaks out and hangs on to the weight, actually makes me hungrier than I have ever been, and I don't lose the weight. So I have learned about me, the best exercise for me is to walk. And I could walk miles and miles and miles, or I could walk a shorter distance. My body likes either one of those, so that's what I do. And I walk currently as much as I can get in. Sometimes that's not very much. Sometimes that's just walking the dog a couple of times a day and not very far. Sometimes it's 4 miles. Sometimes it's 2 miles. I just do what I can do, and I try not to stress about it. Then there's your key. Again, don't stress. Another important thing for me was not feeling deprived. So I had to allow myself to have a treat here and there. Not all the time, not over and over, not several treats a day, but to make sure that I didn't sit there wishing I could have something. I did allow myself to have carbs. I did allow myself to have a treat here and there. Not very often and not a massive amount, but it was enough for me to not go off the deep end and be like, well, I'm just going to eat everything in sight. It allowed me to feel like I was not deprived. I was getting to have that treat. It was no big deal. I could take it or leave it. I also really made a concerted effort to not eat things that I didn't really like. Sometimes you will just eat a sweet because you haven't allowed yourself to have a sweet. So it's like, oh, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't like chocolate cake, but I would get to the point where certainly I'm going to eat some chocolate cake because I haven't had anything sweet to eat for a month, and I would like to have something. And then pretty soon I've eaten the chocolate cake and the cookies and this and this and this. Well, it's because I felt deprived and I didn't want to feel deprived. And remember, it all goes back to me feeling like I deserve things, and deprivation is a huge thing for me. I have to know that about myself, and I have to realize that I need to allow myself to have a treat here and there, or I will eat the entire house and it won't be good. So if you are that type of person and you know that you will come out of a diet and want to eat everything in sight, Don't allow that to be something that is a part of your losing weight. Do not diet. And this is going to be my final point. See this as a marathon, not a sprint. You have to realize it's not like I'm going to lose 10 pounds before this event that's 2 months from now. That means I have to lose 5 pounds this month, 5 pounds next month. I can totally do this. Stop that. Stop that, stop that. You have to see this as a marathon. You have to see this as a movement toward getting healthier, not as a sprint. And I spent a lot of years sprinting. I spent a lot of years thinking if I could just lose this weight really quickly, get back to where I had been, then I can go back to eating normally. That is a horrible way to live your life, and it is not going to work. So you will end up, potentially, you'll end up losing weight and immediately gaining it back, or you won't lose anything because you are just constantly not making your goals and it seems pointless, and so you just quit and give up. I am at a place now where this is a marathon. This is a lifestyle. I am not going to eat everything in sight because that's not who I am. And you really do have to change your mindset with that. And I think as a large family mom, it's very easy for food to be your treat. You are feeding people no less than 3 times a day. They're all hungry. You want to feed them well, but then you find yourself, nibbling here and there. And if you make cookies, you find yourself, secretly kind of eating several cookies after they go to bed, because there is a serotonin rush that comes from food. There is an addictive quality to it where you zone out and you get that high from that food, and it's something that makes you feel better. And a lot of times we're exhausted, and so you're also wanting that sugar rush to wake you up, to help you to keep going. I know there were many, many years where 4 o'clock would hit and I was dragging, and it would be like, let me have a soda, let me have a cookie, let me have a Snickers, anything to keep going. You would be better served to sit down and take a short nap, or take a short walk, or just sit and be still and give yourself the ability to listen to your body and take a break instead of thinking you have to just keep going. I am absolutely one of those people who just thinks I can keep going and keep going and keep going. And then I hit a wall. And what was keeping me going was really food, sugar, soda, whatever it is. I just kept eating to keep myself moving. And now I am having to really readjust my thinking on how do I keep going, or should I keep going? Either I need to find better habits or I need to take a break. And it's really, really hard as moms of many to take a break. You just don't want to, or you don't think you can. And so I would encourage you to find the places, and I talk about this all the time, find the places where you have margin in your day, the white spaces in your day, and then don't fill them. Let yourself have some stillness, some white space, and then teach yourself to not turn to food to keep going, to not turn to food as a treat. I really feel like gluttony is that one last acceptable sin. We have church potlucks. People bring food for everything. Food is permeating our culture, and it's okay because traditions are built on food, and food is central to celebrations, and it's even in the Bible. The Lord is preparing a table. It's okay for there to be food. It's just, where do we put the food in priority in our lives? And are we seeking the Lord even in this? It's not just about what you're feeding your body or what you're feeding your family. It's what you're feeding your soul. And gluttony is one of those things where you are feeding your soul, you're feeding an emptiness with food instead of the Lord. And so that's my encouragement to you today is, baby weight, it's a tough subject and it's hard to get off, but it's probably a deeper issue than just baby weight. Now, one last thing I want to say is that if there is some sort of hormonal imbalance in your body, if you've got some thyroid issues, if you have some, like I said, hormonal imbalances, some estrogen dominance, Things like that are going to cause you to hang on to weight, but it's not impossible to get that weight off. Look into it. Try to figure out if you need to be supplementing with something. Also realize that a lot of those things are stress responses. So if you can work on that stress level, get a massage, go to the chiropractor, take a walk, take some things out of your life. Don't go to so many events. Don't put your children in every single thing there is out there. Give yourself some space and margin. You might be surprised at how things start to adjust in your body as you lower that stress level. Hopefully this has given you some encouragement and some ideas and some tips, and just to help you know that you are not alone. It is not an easy thing to lose the baby weight, especially when you are fluctuating so much as a mom of many. You know, every single child changes your body dynamic just a bit. And you may not ever be the weight you were when you were 18, but that's okay because you weren't actually a full adult at 18. Your body was not at the place that it needed to be at that point. We were still all quite young, and I have noticed that people who looked a certain way at 18 did not look that way at 21. Their body composition changed. After you have children, your body composition changes. You've got to give yourself some grace and mercy, and you also have to realize that this may be a worship thing, and you need to address that. And that is even more important than the actual number on the scale. Is where is your heart? Where is your mind? Where is your focus? And are you feeding your soul with food rather than the Lord?